love Fright Rags. Love what you're doing. Keep it up. You're like the Rick Rubin of t-shirts, dude.
Oh, I take that
So,
as a high compliment.
so
I
I
don't have the
love it, man.
beard, but I'll work on
That's
that.
all right. Yeah. So how's it going, man?
Doing well. How you guys doing?
Awesome, dude. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, great to meet you as well.
Good to have you on, and huge fan of Fright Rags. So I'm
Yeah,
excited for this one.
see the Texas Chainsaw shirt.
Yeah, man. I one of my favorites. I think this and I think the first shirt I ever bought from Fright Rags was it was from the graveyard and it was the raft.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh man, I love that shirt so much. That's what turned me on. I just randomly searched for Creep Show t-shirts and I found that one online. I mean, this was quite a while ago now.
yeah.
But
That actually, it's funny you say that. That's actually one of my probably all-time favorite designs. Like, it's definitely up there. I love that shirt.
yeah, it's so cool, man. And such a good short story, obviously.
Mm.
The Creep Show movies are great. Um, so yeah, let's dive in, man. I'm John, by the way. This is Taylor.
Nice to
What's
meet you
up, man?
guys. What's up?
Um,
Hey, yeah, so like I was wanting to talk to you about that. Like what is and this is kind of just jumping right into it, but what is one of your favorite designs? Is it the raft one?
No, I mean, if it's it's like picking a favorite child. You know what I mean? It's hard to, we first of all have really we are very blessed to be working with a lot of wonderful, talented artists. I mean, we just work with a lot of great people, and Justin Osborne and Kyle Crawford, those are our two main guys that we work with, but we work with a ton of other people. Justin continually puts out some of my favorite designs. Although it's funny, like when I wear something, like I'm wearing Halloween 5 poster art right now, just because I don't know, for some reason I gravitate towards stuff like this, when I wear it in my personal, day to day. But one of my favorites probably is Justin Osborne's Halloween design that he did in 2016. He did one for us in 2013 for the 35th anniversary, which I thought it doesn't get better than this. And then we had him do another one. It was 2016. And I was like, oh, I love it. Like, it's Michael looming over and Laurie's, at the bottom of the stairs. And it's cool because we used that template for the 2018 film because we wanted to mirror that because it was a direct sequel.
right.
And then, for Halloween Kills, we kind of wanted the same vibe, but of course that was the sort of mob mentality. And then with Halloween Ends, we really wanted to make it more Laurie versus Michael. So they all kind of mirror that original one. But I'd say that one is definitely up there. But I mean, look, I could probably go on for hours about my favorite designs. So it's really hard.
And you're
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're obviously a huge Halloween fan. I know that was one of your first movies you saw, correct?
That was the first horror movie I saw. I was 4 years old. It was the network premiere. It was 1981, October 30th. I actually have the TV guide that came out that week.
Oh,
Wow.
that is
And
cool.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
I mean, I bought it later on eBay, but I had to buy it, right? Because like that
Yeah.
was my memory. It's literally like this core memory in my brain of seeing that. And again, I was 4, so I didn't know what a horror movie was, let alone network premiere or anything. I was used to Scooby Doo and stuff like that, right? So
Mhm.
seeing Halloween just blew my mind. So as much as I've, watched obviously tons of horror since then and love tons of different subgenres of, of horror and everything, that is my favorite movie of all time, horror and non-horror period. Like that, it's like that. And then, okay, we'll talk about everything else. But Halloween is in a class of its own.
Well,
Uh,
I want to ask you real quick. Like I know so you love Halloween. How do you feel about Rob Zombie's Halloween?
I here's the thing. I like Rob. I like Rob as an artist, and whether it's music or movies, what I've always appreciated about him is that he sticks to his vision 100%. And
Yeah.
I can appreciate that about a person, regardless of if it's your personal like aesthetic, right? Like I loved House of Thousand Corpses, and then Devil's Rejects comes out, and I was like, oh, that's different, but still amazing. Like, I mean, it was a different tone, right? And then, seeing his Halloween, I'll be honest, I personally don't like having the backstory be so. It's kind of cool that you saw his backstory, but it also takes away the mystique of Michael, right? Of
Yeah.
why he's scary. But I think in his universe, it works great. I mean, look, the way he crafts those people and the family and the way you follow Michael through his years, I actually think it works in that context, but it's not the Michael Myers that I gravitate toward, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different thing. I have a more of appreciation for Halloween 2 these days. I hated it when it came out. Well, I just didn't like it, right? I just didn't do anything for me. But I got the Blu-ray when it came out. I watched the director's cut with Rob, and I watched the well, it was the director's cut with the commentary of Rob's. And I thought this movie is actually underappreciated. I'm not saying I love it. I just think I appreciate it a lot more these days. So I have to say I appreciate his vision and everything that he does. And we work with him when we do stuff like House of the Corpse and everything. Like we talk to him directly. He sees everything we do and he gives us notes. Like he's very, and the reason why I bring that up is because he's very hands-on with everything that we do. So I appreciate that, but it's just a totally different thing than, you know, the John Carpenter vision, if you will.
Yeah, what a tough franchise to tackle too, to be asked to actually remake it, you know, and not even continue the franchise like you know, David Gordon Green did and all that, but to actually remake the first one is a tough go. So that's
in the studio.
He loves the first one too, you know. So it's not like he wanted to mess anything up. He just, you know, wanted to make it his own, I think, as well.
And the studio really had a lot of involvement with the second one, and it really almost, you know, made him not do it. So there's a lot of that tension too. I think that, you know, he ended up, I think, making what he wanted to make, but you know, it almost wasn't the same as like a David Gordon Green situation where they almost had the blessing of everybody and the carte blanche in a way, you know what I mean, to do what they wanted to do. So
yeah. And by the way, this is the 6th episode in a row that Taylor has mentioned Rob Zombie's Halloween. I just want to point that out. He's a big fan.
You're a fan.
I'm a huge fan, and I'm not a fan of Halloween, like the original. Like
you're not a fan of it.
No, man, it's not one of those. It's not one of those that just, you know, grab me, I guess. But so you mentioned working with Zombie and talking to him directly and all that stuff. Is there others that you do the same situation with?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like not as many in terms of actual direct contact. Because like, for example, when we do Jaws or E.T. or anything that's Amblin, it has to go to Spielberg, but we don't talk to Spielberg. It goes through Universal, who then contacts Spielberg and his people. I'm assuming he has to okay it as well. And then we get notes from them and then we have to change, but we don't talk to him at all. So I'm trying to think of who else. You know, the only other times it can come up sometimes is when it's actors' likenesses, right? So very rarely, though, do we go directly to the actors themselves because, again, sometimes it's a studio thing. Funny enough, in this sort of topic, I had to approach Jamie Lee Curtis about her likeness in the new ones because when we were working with the new films, we got in contact with her through a mutual friend, a producer, because she wanted some lunch boxes that we did for her charity. So we ended up having a kind of email contact back and forth, and she really loved the shirts and she wanted to wear them at premieres and stuff. So we were sending them back and forth. But unfortunately, with these newer movies and there's so many studios involved, it can take a long time to get stuff done and you have to get it all approved and get it all done. And we were under a tight deadline because we wanted to get the pre-order up in September before the movie came out in October. So we could, you know, meet the demand of everybody who wanted the shirts to wear to the movie. Yeah. And in this particular case, like I could not wait for the studio to start going to all these people and ask them, you know, stuff. So I was like, just letting you know, I'm going to Jamie myself. So I literally just emailed Jamie. I'm like, is this cool? And she's like, yup. And I just sent them the email. I'm like, she said it was cool. So check that box. And you know what I mean? Still had to get approval, but it was like, it was so down to the wire that I was like, we have no time. So I'm like, I'm sending it to these people in this studio and I'm sending it to those people. I'm not letting you like, forget it. We don't have time. So we're lucky enough to be able to do that. But that, again, these are sort of rare instances. Most of the time you have to send it to the studio.
Yeah. Well, how does this feel? Like that sorry, John, I don't mean to cut you off, but man, this is like a huge accomplishment. Like from 2003 to now, like look at where you're at. Like this is do you just like step back and like, hey, dang, like I've really
I mean 20 years, man. Crazy.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, of course, there are a lot, especially because it is like the 20th year, so my mind reflects on that a lot. Because I mean, look, when I first started this, I was like, I didn't think it was gonna last 20 minutes, you know what I mean? 20
Yeah.
days, right? And to be 20 years later and to even be saying the words like I contacted Jamie Lee Curtis sounds like
Crazy.
honestly ridiculous to myself. Like
Yeah.
even saying that, it makes me sound like I'm like, oh my God, what is happening in my life? And I appreciate it so much because I mean I'm grateful and blessed. Like it's not something I'm sitting there going, yeah, you know, I talked to this person. No, it's like I'm always in people I become friends with. It's like it's weird because I'm friends with them, but then I'm like, man, that's a person I watched growing up because I'm still a fan, you know?
Yeah.
It's incredibly humbling. I mean, when you're in the moment, sometimes it's just almost too stressful to for you to really it's like you're comprehending it because I'm like, here I am writing this email to this person but at the same time, I'm like, I need to get this done because we have stuff to put out for people that want it. You know what I mean? Like I'm more concerned about making sure we uphold our end of the bargain that we've given to our customers to be like, you're going to have this product in time, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost so focused on that, but then you stop and go like, I mean, again, with Jamie and the Halloween Kill stuff, I mean, she was hitting me up for some shirts and we sent them to her. And then she wrote me and she's like, oh, by the way, I'm posting this today. And it was her and Demi Moore and Melanie Griffith and Paris Jackson all wearing our shirts. And I was like,
Dude.
okay, what's happening right now? Like,
Yeah,
That's insane.
crazy.
it was wild. And so I look at that and go, I can't believe that happened. And I'm incredibly grateful for that experience and to have that. I mean, the adrenaline pumps because you're like, oh my God, and things start selling and you're trying to figure it out and you're running out of stock and you got to print more and you're running around like crazy. And then you stop and go, what just happened? Like, how did this happen to us? This is insane. But
Yeah.
it's a great feeling. I have to say, it's a wonderful feeling, and I just always just wake up so thankful for it because you know I get to kind of do this stuff every day, and as stressful as it can be, I'm like, wait a minute, but this is what I want to be doing. You know, this is. And no one's like putting a gun to my head to do this stuff. I want to be here doing this. And what else am I going to do with myself? Like, this is what I
Yeah.
love doing. So,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
well,
it's interesting because it's a, it's obviously a business at the end of the day.
Yeah,
So
of
you got to
course.
take care of that first, but it's nice that you kind of have the opportunity to like nerd out like that, you know what I mean? When it's
100%. Oh, are
the
you kidding
moment,
me? I'm a huge nerd. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, you don't take it for granted. You're like, damn, that's
Yeah.
right. You know what I mean? Like I got to play Michael Myers again opposite PJ Souls for a short film that we did several
Oh
years ago. We
wow.
had her in town to show Halloween. And she's again another person that's become a good friend of mine, and she's almost like family at this point. But like we had her do a cameo in the short film. It's just this little short film we were doing called November 1st. And here I am in a Michael Myers mask opposite her. And she asked me if, see anything you like. And it's so funny. In the moment, I'm like, granted, listen, it's a small little like thing, fan film, right? It's nothing like major. But I'm sitting there staring at her through a Michael Myers mask and she's acting. And I was like,
it's
hey,
like
this is
surreal.
cool, you know? And
Yeah.
then that night, our buddy ran home to edit it real quick, and we get to the theater, and everyone was doing a meet and greet, and it was her and her boyfriend and myself and my wife up in the balcony, and it was a sold out crowd. And the cool thing was we were showing Halloween. It was my personal 35 millimeter print of Halloween we were showing.
Wow.
And before it, we showed this November 1st, and they were blown away by the movie because Eric, who works with me, and there's a couple other people that helped with this movie. It came out great. It's on YouTube if you ever check it out. It's like 4 minutes.
Definitely.
But a couple weeks after that, or a month after that, TJ texted me one morning. She's like, "Oh, by the way, I sent that movie to John and Rob, John Carpenter and Rob Zombie,
Whoa.
and
Wow.
they loved it. They thought it was great." I was like, "What's happening right now?
There must have been a little bit of panic right there for a second. Like, oh no, oh, this was supposed to just be this little
Yeah,
thing.
totally." I was like, "What? Like, this is crazy."
Yeah.
So anyway, it's stuff like that. We were like, "Man, that was so cool." But yeah, it's just fun.
Do you guys
That's
have like
cool.
other short films that you've done? Is that something you do a lot or?
Yeah, so before COVID, so we have kind of rewinding a little bit. Well, it's kind of funny I said that. We have a monthly series called Saturday Night Rewind that we work with a local theater. And it's a local art house theater, and every month, usually every month we show some genre film, usually horror. In October, we do one a week. We usually try to get 35 millimeter when we can. And, we've been able to have some guests, whether in person or like via Skype on the big screen. So like we'll do a Q&A and people can, which is nice because if they're in California, they can just be sitting on their couch and, talking to an entire audience of people, and they can come up and talk to them and whatever. So we've been doing that for several years now, but we will have guests sometimes. So we have Joe Bob a couple times, had PJ, and a few years ago, well, starting with the PJ one, this was 2017, we were like, we should shoot a short film to show before the movie. And it kind of got us going. And we made a story up about what would Michael do on November 1st. And then the year later, we were showing Night of the Living Dead. So we decided to shoot a short film, and we did it, part of it in the cemetery that it was filmed. And we got Russ Streiner to be in it, which is really cool. And then a year later, we did another film. So we've done 3 of them so far. They're up on our YouTube channel. Again, they're like 3-4 minutes long. And then COVID hit, and then we really haven't gotten back into that, but we would love to start doing it again.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that'd be cool. That's interesting. I like that. I didn't know this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something fun to do because we're like, and it's great because we work so closely with the theater. Like they let us kind of do what we want, so
that's super cool.
Films, and then we can just go show films, and it's so much fun. It's like having a party once a month, with your friend.
Is it weird seeing it on the big screen?
Yeah, it is. It's cool though, right? Because and especially with an audience, because they don't know what they're about to watch. They have no idea. So you just kind of throw it up there, and it's just
it's not like you're doing like big trailers or anything. You know what I mean? Right. So everybody's just kind of surprised. That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Very cool. Excuse me. Dang man, I got sidetracked. I was listening to that story, and I had something to ask you. Go ahead, John.
How about speaking of like mixing business and pleasure, is it ever weird like putting out shirts, like the business side of it, because obviously you're trying to not please everybody, but you're trying to put out a lot of a different variety of merchandise as far as movies go. Is it weird like when you have to put out something that like maybe you don't necessarily like as far as a movie goes? Maybe you like the design, the design, but as far as the movie, you're kind of like, oh, I don't like this movie, but obviously a lot of other people do. So
yeah, I mean, we obviously work with tons of titles, and it's not like I'm gonna sit here and say every movie is my absolute favorite, right? So, like for a good example, this was a couple years ago. We got approached by one of the producers of I Spit on Your Grave, and that is just not. I mean, I've seen that movie. I've seen it once. I really don't know if I ever want to watch it again. It's not a movie that I'm
with you
gravitate toward. And I felt really weird about putting out a shirt for it because I just didn't know. I knew they were fans of this film, clearly. I also knew that some people do use this film as like therapy for themselves, right? In situations they've gone through. And I respect that. And look, it's one of those things where I appreciate that it exists because, the guy made it to be almost like an anti-rape film because he helped somebody through a rape. He saved him and his daughter and stuff. So it's not like it was ever put out as mean-spirited or anything. It's just not a film that I'm sitting here on a Friday night going, yeah, I'm going to throw on I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah, that's my comfort film.
Right, exactly. But I understand some people like enjoy it and again, maybe use it as therapy for themselves or whatever. So we agreed to do it. We did donate proceeds to RAIN, which is a domestic violence charity. And I thought, it made me feel better to be able to do something like that and raise money for that. So, but again, people loved it. I mean, we didn't get any like backlash for it or anything, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely times where you're like, I mean, not for anything, but like the shirt you're wearing, John, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for 2022, like we didn't see the film before it came out. We couldn't get a screener, but we saw images of Leatherface, and I was sort of like, is it going to be any good? And I actually enjoyed it, to be honest with you. When it first came out, I couldn't wait to see it. I saw it when it first dropped on Netflix, and I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I don't think it deserved all the hate it got, but when it's a movie you really don't know about, and you're kind of like, well, we're going to try.
That's interesting.
We can't vet it beforehand and be like, oh,
right. Well, first of all, the shirt, either way, is unbelievable.
Yeah, honestly, for what we had to work with, I mean,
Leatherface looks like
Kyle, I love
badass, dude. He looks like a badass, and I agree with you. I like the film. I think it was easy. Like I went into it being like, I'm just gonna take it for what it is. I don't have any of this crazy hype
Yep.
for it, you know. I really liked what they did. I thought it was kind of just straight to the point. It wasn't like this huge story arc, you know what I mean? It was just kind of like, hey, we're gonna get down to business. Um, I really didn't like the characters, so I liked when they all died,
Yeah.
which was great.
I will say I don't know if you know this, maybe you did. I was talking to somebody a few months after the movie came out, and he said the original screenplay for that film was so much better, and they butchered it when they filmed it. They cut so much out
Really?
that would have, and he told me all about like a little bit of the backstory, and I was like, that would have been a way better film.
Huh. I wonder
So I
why.
don't know if that exists somewhere where you can read it, but the story I heard, I'm like, that sounds amazing to me, much better.
I wonder why.
Who knows, right?
Was it too much for Netflix or something like that?
Yeah, maybe
I
it
don't
was like a
know.
production thing.
Because it talked more about why they were luring those people to the town as like the scam, and they talked more about Sally's backstory and the trauma, the shared trauma with her and I think one of the main girls. It's been a while. Sorry, I haven't seen it in a while, but it definitely had a little more meat on the bone that I thought could have filled in some of the gaps where I was watching the movie going, wait a minute, what? Like,
Especially with Sally. Like she was kind of
Yeah.
just kind of just thrown in when she's kind of like this icon, you know what I mean? You were
exactly
expecting kind of a Laurie Strode 2018 Halloween type of thing, and
right.
you didn't really get that. Which I guess I wasn't like completely like psyched for that because I knew it was Netflix and I knew maybe some stuff like that would happen.
Right.
But as far as like the image, the cinematography and some of the images, I mean, when he's in the field, I'm like, this is beautiful, man.
Yeah,
Like
that was cool.
for a TCM movie, this is great, you know?
Yeah,
What? So,
agreed.
like, with Halloween being your favorite, how'd you feel about the new ones?
I really enjoyed them. I really liked 2018. It's
Yeah.
funny, we got for that movie because we had the license for all three of them. We had the script and the images like in March before it came out. And part of me didn't want to read the script, but obviously, of course I did. So only two of us at the office read it, and I was like, this is pretty darn good, but there was a couple things I didn't like. The Dr. Sartain character I didn't like. Um, and then there were moments, the ending was different from the what was shown. Um, and I was like, I really like it, but there were some parts that I didn't like. And then I heard they were doing reshoots, and the whole third act they kind of redid, and it was so much better. And I did enjoy it a lot. Halloween Kills, that was a thing where for that movie, we didn't get the script in advance, but I got to visit the set for a couple days, which was really cool. And then I heard all about the story, like I knew what was going to happen. So I was like, "Oh, this is going to be awesome." And actually, I did enjoy Halloween Kills. It's actually a pretty rewatchable movie for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand the whole Evil Dies Tonight thing, and some of the dialogue is corny, and there's some elements of it that I'm certainly not. It's not like I love everything about it, but because I've seen it like 5 or 6 times, to me, it's like, well, it's a pretty rewatchable film, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Halloween Ends, that was the one I knew the least about going in, even to the point where we were talking to the studio trying to get images, and they're like, well, it's just different. I'm like, okay, that doesn't design a t-shirt. Like I gotta go somewhere with this, right?
Right.
And meanwhile, the clock's ticking down. So for that one, I walked into it almost like I kind of knew what was going to happen, but I really didn't. And I had conflicting feelings. I saw it twice in basically a 24-hour period, and I was like, I don't hate it. I really like elements of it, but I understood the vitriol from people because really you're building up to this final trilogy, moment in a trilogy, and you're expecting good versus evil, Laurie versus Michael. But what you're getting is, 85 minutes of a tragic love story or something, right?
Yeah.
And you end with the Laurie versus Michael thing. And I'm sort of like, if you would have taken all three movies and started moving parts around and crafted a new trilogy to start introducing Corey earlier or something, I
Right.
think people wouldn't have been so pissed off. But I
Yeah.
do like the direction they did take the evil, and I didn't mind the Corey thing. I don't think it was bad. I just think for what we were expecting, it wasn't right, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was thinking Thelma and Louise off the bridge, man. Like like I wanted Lori and Michael to go out
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
I was like, let's go. This is gonna be it, especially when you think about it, not just from the trilogy, but from the entire franchise from people like you who have watched it since they were 10 years old. You really want that final, you know, that final battle. And like, I liked Corey as well. I just thought to build him up for that whole movie, and then he's just kind of gone. If he survived and something happens with Corey later, maybe I understand it a little more, but to each their own as well. I mean, I think it was split right down the middle, and you know, they tried something different, and I think for half the people it worked, half the people it didn't, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
That's the way it is with us. Like he wasn't a fan of it, and me not being a fan of Halloween, I truly enjoyed that film. Like I thought it was completely different in every way that I wanted it to be different. So what did you have to work with to make the shirts?
We just had images, just some photos. But it's funny because we had some of Michael that you could see all of his fingers, and I'm like, don't use that one. We actually did use one of them on our designs, but we had to cut his fingers off because that was technically Corey in the thing.
Okay.
We had his scarecrow mask, and we had like his face, Corey's face and stuff, but we couldn't use any of that anyway. The other thing is, when we're designing shirts for a movie that's about to come out, it's like we're actually doing that for Evil Dead Rise right now, where we just got a bunch of stuff for it. But when a consumer's trying to buy a shirt for a movie they haven't seen yet, you can't throw in stuff that they've never seen because there's no attachment to it.
Right.
So you almost have to pull out iconic moments from the trailer to sort of throw on a shirt because that registers with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if we saw a scene in the movie that no one else has seen and we put it on a shirt, people, you know, especially if it's like a highlight, I don't think it would sell as well. So in some ways, we don't even need a lot to go by. But with Halloween Ends, we had some of the kills. We actually had some of the kills that you don't even, well, the extended kills. They're on the extended edition. You can see them now, but they weren't in theatrical, like the pillow and stuff like that.
Right.
But I agree. I actually think time will be kind to that trilogy, especially Halloween Ends. I think over time, people will appreciate it. I think in 10, 15 years, you're going to start seeing, well, if there's still blog posts, people making videos and stuff about like, hey, you know what? It's not as bad as people said it was.
That's
you know?
that's what I said about it, because like you got 1, 2, and then 3, and you know when that come out, the original 3, everyone hated 3, you know, and 3 is my favorite. Like I absolutely love that movie.
Aged like fine wine, dude.
Yeah, and I kept telling everybody, I'm like, this is 3 made over. You know, it's so
the title card.
weird.
It was the same
Thing.
typeface. That's the other thing. I think David Gordon Green is an incredibly smart filmmaker, and I think he imbued a lot of these sort of things. Again, as a fan, or some fans, or maybe even most fans, maybe they just want to see that straight ahead slasher, right? But he's trying to really broaden it and make it, for lack of a better term, make it smarter. And again, I understand why people were upset, but I appreciate David Gordon Green's vision. He, again, goes back to an artist having a vision. And I appreciate that he put on the screen exactly what he wanted to see. I don't have to love every second of it, but I appreciate it. But I do think he's again, he was smart about it, because we've seen this before where Jamie came back and then they pissed all over her in Resurrection, and that movie sucks. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's like, to me, I'm like, this was a lot better than that. I mean, I love H2O. It's a fun movie, but Resurrection is just not a good movie.
And he,
No,
I
I
mean,
agree.
he absolutely, I mean, I'm a Kills fan, so I get a lot of heat for that, I guess. But I mean, he crushed the flashback scenes. I thought they were beautiful. I thought the ending of Kills was amazing. The more he kills, the more he transcends thing, kind of making it a little bit supernatural. I love that movie.
Did you ever read the books?
From the new trilogy?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I have to get my hands on those. I don't own those.
I don't read, but my wife does, and she said with Kills, it like what John was saying, it goes into it like he is this entity, pretty much. You know, like he's there to pretty much just fuck shit up, and that's cool. But sorry, go ahead.
The essence of evil. You know, it's kind of a cool thing. Speaking of David Gordon Green, I'm a huge fan of The Exorcist. I don't know how you feel about it, or him tackling those movies. I hear he's possibly doing a trilogy with those as well. I haven't heard much about it. I wonder how he's going to be at doing that and doing 3 movies of The Exorcist, which didn't bode well in the past. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, well, Ellen Burstyn's back, right?
Yeah.
And Linda Blair, I think, is going to be back in
I think
some
she,
capacity.
yeah, I think they just
Um,
announced that.
look, I'm a person that like if I don't always just say, hey, you can't do that or can't remake that or can't do that. I'm always like, hey, you know what? Why not? Like
Right.
at this point, we are 40, 50 years past some of these movies, right?
Yeah.
And why not? Like, give it a whirl. And my thought is, this comes out and someone's like, oh, this is a sequel to a movie. Oh, I mean, most people have heard The Exorcist, granted, but like it brings it back in sort of the zeitgeist. And if there's younger person out there that goes and watch The Exorcist, the original, because they heard about this new one and they become a fan, to me, that's a win-win, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
I just feel like people are like, you're ruining my childhood. It's like you can go back and watch the original movie. No one's touching that. It's just a different person's take. It's like, I look at like Michael Myers or something like this, maybe not as much The Exorcist. It's like Batman. You can do 300 Batman movies or trilogies or whatever. You can do the Christian Bale trilogy. You can do this new Batman. You can do the Michael Keaton thing, Zack Snyder's. It's the same character. You're just doing different takes on it. To me,
Yeah.
why not? Like, it might be amazing. It might not be that good, but it's okay. They're still making original movies out there. It's not like the only thing they're making is remakes. So I say the more the merrier. I'm just all for it, you know?
There
Right.
you go. Yeah.
And it, you know, to be
That's very,
fair, I mean,
that's very well said.
it could be someone else's, like you said, Batman. This could be someone else's Halloween. This could be someone else's Exorcist that gets them into the genre or makes them love Michael Myers or
Yeah.
so it's pretty interesting when that stuff happens. And I agree. I mean, the gatekeeping thing is kind of odd, you know. I'm a big like protector of The Exorcist. It's like
Yeah.
it's my thing, but I'm still excited to see what they do. Especially where the way things are now, I'm sure they're going to put the head spin in at some point, like how
Mhm.
does that look? Are they going to do CGI? Are they going to try to keep it as practical as possible, make it look really good? How's the tone of the film going to be? Probably completely different with color grading and the lighting and stuff like that. Can they
Oh
make
yeah.
can they make it even darker? How's the dialogue going to be? So all that stuff like comes up into my head, and then I get to thinking about it and I'm like, oh, I'm excited for this now,
Yeah.
I don't know much about it. Are they doing a straight or like a remake of that?
It's
I,
a requel sequel thing, I guess you would call it.
I
So
Like
believe
it's
if
it's like I think it's like Halloween 2018 where it's a
yeah,
legacy sequel where and again, I don't know, but I don't think 2 and 3 factor into this. I think
yeah,
it's one to this.
yeah,
so
because
if they do a requel, it's going to be kind of like the Scream and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I kind of feel like they're going to put more of the younger generation aspect on things, right?
Well, I
yeah,
don't
it's
know.
weird. I mean, The Exorcist is tough because there's not like it's not like you have a group of friends type thing or like all these other characters. I think it's going to be a few characters that they're really focused on. So I think it'll be more like the Halloween franchise where you
One
know,
thing.
you focus on Reagan if she's in there. I don't know how much she will be in there. Um, Stuff like that. So I think it'll maybe they'll follow the same type of story where instead of this time the demon calling for Father Marin, maybe this time he's calling for Reagan to come back. You know what I mean? That
Okay.
type of thing, and you kind of follow the same guidelines of the original. And then like the second and third one of the original franchise, like I don't even think the third one incorporated the second one at all. I think it was like
No, it
almost
was almost a
basically a
direct
sequel.
sequel to. I just actually watched the third one again last night because I just got it in 4K and it looks awesome.
Yeah, I bet it does. That one scene
But
with the nun there, great scene.
oh my God.
Yeah,
No,
so
I was
good.
gonna say to your point about the effects and everything, Chris Nelson, who did the effects in the new Halloween movies, is doing the effects on Exorcist. So
Yeah,
I think we're in good hands in terms of any practical effects and that type of thing. I don't think they would just go straight to CGI for CGI's sake. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah, and you kind of keeping the close team like that is probably good. You have that camaraderie and you've
Mm-hmm.
worked with them before, so you can kind of pick each other's brains and be in each other's heads, I think. So
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying I wouldn't mind a Fright Rags shirt, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
I was about
mean,
to, do you have any images or anything so far?
uh,
Not that he could tell us.
yeah, I can't confirm or deny anything other than you'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a little early to talk about, but
right.
Believe me, they've already discussions are already happening. So
Nice. That's great to hear.
Yeah. Cool. So I want to know, like, you got started with all this, and you started out with a WWJD, right?
Yep, that's right.
So that was 2003. That was kind of like one of those shirts that like I see dead people, but it was like I see something else, shirts. That's funny that you did that, because that's I kind of remember seeing that floating around places, and I was asking my parents, because I'm younger, and I was like, I want that shirt. I want that shirt. They're like, no, that's sacrilegious.
Well, it wasn't Hot Topic. They so basically the sort of quick story about that is that was one of 3 designs that I first put out, but that really was the thing that made me want to start putting on things on t-shirts, because to me it was funny, but it also referenced horror. And at the time it looked like Jason's hockey mask with the triangles and everything. It was a part 6 mask actually. And that was 2003, obviously. In 2005, I got a cease and desist from New Line Studios. Ooh. And they were like, you can't do this. You're using our trademarks. Even though I never said Friday 13th anywhere, they claim to own the trademarks to the triangles, the eye shapes, the shape of the mask, all that. So I said, all right, well, I'm going to change all of that. I'm going to change the eye holes. I'm going to change the mask shape. And I sent it back to them. I said, look, I'm going to start selling this one instead. You can't. I was kind of, to be honest, when I look back, I was kind of being a little ballsy about it. But I was like, look, took everything out of your trademark, so I'm going to sell it. And they're like, well, you just can't call it Friday 13th. I'm like, I never did anyway. So the day later, I put that out, and some of my friends and customers were like, yeah, it looks kind of like an alien mask. I'm like, yeah, but people know what it is. And we ended up selling, like, that year, 2006, we sold like over 8,000 at Hot Topic.
Wow.
So it might be where you saw it, because it got everywhere. They kept reordering it, which was great. So it did good for a year. But it's funny, when I came up with that idea, I Google searched everything. I thought someone had to have done this before. Granted, this is before social media and before a lot of horror shirt sites were out there. I couldn't find anything. So I was like, well, I'm just going to do it. It's funny. You Google that now, you'll see 3,000 iterations of it. And they all look better than my design does, for sure. But it's just funny how it's kind of proliferated. But
you're a graphic designer too, correct?
Yeah. So I kind of bounced around when I was younger. I went to school right after college. I wanted to go for illustration. Then I quickly switched to film, and then I quit because I just wanted to play my band. And then, that whole typical, you're 19, you don't know what the hell you're doing. And then, my girlfriend graduated college, and she's like, what the hell are you doing with yourself? I'm like, I don't know. And then I realized I've always loved art. I've always been artistic, but I started getting into Photoshop. And this was like around the time of Photoshop 3. And I was like photo manipulating things. I thought, I really like layout design and that type of thing. So when I should have been graduating college, I re-enrolled and went for 4 years to become a graphic design major. Cool. To a place right here in Rochester called Rochester Institute of Technology. They actually have a wonderful, like, renowned design program. Even my junior year, I was able to study abroad, and I went to study at the Bauhaus School of Design in Germany for a summer, which was great. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I was ever really great at it, but I love the theory of it, and I loved learning about composition and design and stuff. So I think it really did help translate as I started Fright Rags.
So whenever you, like, I know you've got a couple people working for you or working with you and all that stuff. Do you design all of them now, or is it like a collective thing? How does this go?
I mean, I don't. It's funny. I don't do any of the actual design anymore. I mean, very rarely I'll do some mock-ups for artists and stuff. Like for example, Justin Osborne, he's like a genius. And even Kyle, like, he's amazing and incredibly prolific. So we'll go, oh, hey, Justin, we want to do a Jaws shirt. And I kind of just lob it over to him to do and conceptualize on his own. Even though, like, we'll give him limitations, like, hey, you can't use this actor, we can't do this, whatever. He knows sort of the rules. He'll go off and do his own thing. And 9 times out of 10, I'll be like, that's perfect. Like, don't need to change anything. I love it. And Kyle is sort of similar, although Kyle will come back with like 7 designs and I'll ask them to change one thing here or do something here, or sometimes they're just great as is. I love when artists do their thing. So I kind of, but I will a lot of times be like, no, like it should really look like this, or no, we need to change this, or hey, move this here, or sometimes it's small tweaks. Sometimes it's like, you know what, I'm not feeling it at all. And then sometimes I'll be like, I have this idea and I'll sketch it out, I'll comp it in Photoshop, or I'll draw it out and I'll send someone a picture of it, and then that's what they do in their style. So it is a lot of different variations. Basically everything has to go through me though, like no matter what it is, I have to look at it and sign off. Now we have to get approval from the studio, clearly. I mean, that's I mean, if they reject it, we can't do it ever. But in terms of internally, everything goes through me no matter what it is, because I want to see it and look at it. And, you know, look, sometimes I'm like, it's a fine design, I wouldn't wear that, but we should put it out because it's still pretty cool looking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why we try a lot of different styles, because you never know. I'm not the only person. I mean, as much as it has to go through me, there's so many tastes and differences out there that someone might be like, that is my favorite shirt ever. And I'll be like, well, it's not mine, but I'm glad it's yours. And I'm glad we put it out.
Is that a difficult decision to make sometimes?
It can be. I mean, believe me, there's times where we're like, it just doesn't fit the collection. Like, I'm very much like to curate. Like, if we have 5 designs, I'm like, well, these 2 are too similar, let's wait for that one. And sometimes it never gets released, or like, it is hard to cut some things sometimes, but I never regret it, because it's always like you're doing it for a reason, you know? I mean, and again, it's through the distorted lens of me, but I'm looking at things going, it doesn't fit right. Let's move this out. Okay, that looks better to me if we do these 3 instead of those 4, because we tried to shoehorn something in or whatever. So you just got to make decisions. But I think overall, it's more disappointing when we submit something and that gets rejected. That's more disappointing.
Wow.
Like a studio, you know, and it's like, oh, but come on, like that's
so you put all your time and effort into this, and they're just like, nope.
Yeah, there's probably so many loopholes, man, that you got to jump through probably, and that's pretty wild.
It can be. And again, it's different for everybody in every studio, and some people are just ridiculously easy to work with, and some studios or people take forever, and then they're asking you a gazillion questions. There's been times where I've had to literally write a page and a half description of why we did what we did for this design and why each element's there and what it's about. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, I didn't realize I'd have to write an essay, you know?
How, you know, just with Zombie being my favorite, is he pretty easy to work with?
Oh yeah, 100%. He's always been really cool. He'll email us ideas. Like, he'd be like, hey, could you maybe do something like this? Like, yeah, we'll try it. But yeah, he's always been really cool. There was one time that it got a little crazy. And what I mean by that is because we were under a little bit of a deadline, because we wanted to get a shirt out, and unfortunately it just didn't meet his expectations, which was fine. Like, and when he told me what he said, I understood it. I'm like, yeah, it does need to be fixed. Like, we should fix this. Like, you are right, this could be pushed further, even though I thought the design was really good. It was almost just like, oh, but I thought it was going to be fine and we could go right to print with it, you know? Yeah. So it had to take another few days, but I'll be honest, the design is much better for it. And again, I understood why he wanted that change. It was just like, oh, I didn't think we were going to have to change that one, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. But it worked out.
Yeah, I'm sure he's easy, because I mean, he's an artist himself, so he kind of understands the giving the artist the kind of freedom to do what they please, you know. But is it production companies that shut you down and stuff sometimes? And is it based on the actual design that they don't like, or is it based on getting the license and stuff like that sometimes?
No, I mean, we would have, in order to submit, we would already have the license, right? So, and we usually know what we can and can't do. So a lot of times it's like, hey, what actors can we use? What can't we do? That type of thing. The funny thing is, one of the funniest things was actually Jaws, because we were doing designs early on when we first got the rights. And again, you can't show any actors likeness. So you're really struggling to kind of like, okay, we have to find a lot of creative ways to show a shark, right? So we had this one idea though of showing Quint from behind, kind of like looking up, and, the shark coming up. And it wasn't like, I mean, look, it was a cool design. It was like an illustration, like comic book illustration. We submitted it and they said, hey, we don't like this. It looks like the shark's about to kill him. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. Like, we're not showing any blood. There's no like him biting into Quint or whatever. Like, yeah, that's too violent. We can't show that. And I'm like, I think
Oh,
they're trying to retcon Jaws as like this family movie, which to me it basically is. I mean, and believe me, Jaws is one of my favorite movies of all
oh, it's
time, but it's
great.
not as scary as it can be. The only real gory graphic part is the Quint part, you know?
Yeah.
It's pretty tame in terms of like horror movies. And it's funny, I'm like, but and we even had one where it had like blood on the shark's face, and like you can't put blood on the face, it's too bloody. And I'm like, I don't. This is Jaws we're talking about. This
Yeah.
isn't like
So you
like
just want a shark. That's all you want.
yeah. So, but I'll be honest, it's fine. Like we change it up, and we couldn't use that design, which sucks. But sometimes those limitations really force you into this creative like place where you're like, here's all the things we can't do. What do we got? And then when you sit around going, oh, and you start thinking in different ways than you would if you had the key to do anything you wanted to do. So
Yeah, that's
try to look
difficult.
at it that way.
I
Yeah,
talk I talk about I talk about that way with movies. I think people when they're on a budget, it's the same type of thing. It kind of forces
yeah.
we were talking to A&P Films and Drew Marvick, and we talked a little bit to
I like
Nightmare.
Drew. Drew's a great guy, man.
Drew's awesome, and we were kind of talking, his the limitations on Pool Party Massacre and stuff like that, and how it kind of forces you to make decisions that end up being even cooler because you kind of got to think about it. What's a creative way we can do this because we don't have money to do this. So it seems like it's the same type of way with your business. It's you got to find a different route sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's awesome.
How did you come up with the name?
Oh, it was such a scientific process. No joke. I literally, so when I was coming up with a business, it was really because I had these ideas. And you guys are familiar, I'm sure, with Trick or Treat Studios.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the co-founders, Justin Mabry, was one of my first friends ever in this business. And he and I became friends before I even started Fright Rags. I was just a part of his forum because he made the best Michael Myers masks and other masks available. So he and I just struck up a friendship. He lived in Mississippi. We would talk. I mean, that's my wife. We would talk for literally like 5 or 6 hours at a time. It was ridiculous. And I just wanted to do something creative. So when I came up with these ideas for shirts, he's like, dude, let's put these on my forum. I'm sure people would love them. And people started commenting and they said, oh, I'd buy this as a shirt. I'd buy this. And to me, I was like, this is like this social proof of like, maybe I could actually sell a t-shirt. So at that point, I just needed a place for people to go to buy the shirts. So I'm sitting here going, okay, I'm going to, hand code a website, HTML, and connected a PayPal button. I'd never done that before. I knew HTML from college. So it was really bad. But so I'm like, what am I going to call myself? And I'm writing all these words in one column for like horror related and all these words for like shirts related. And I'm kind of drawing lines between the two. And I was like, I remember laying in bed and I go to my wife and I'm like, Fright Rags. That sounds interesting. Yeah, maybe I'll just say Fright Rags. And for whatever reason, I bought the domain with the little hyphen as opposed to one word. And just kind of like stuck after that. And it's funny, in the years since, I always didn't like the name because it didn't seem cool enough to me, like something that could be its own brand in a way. It was kind of just said what we were. And then it's funny because we've been around for 20 years now, it feels like a brand, and I think people have associated it with a brand that I've seen it in some cases, which is great because I didn't think we'd get to that point, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I mean, now like you do the stuff with the theaters and you do your own short films, which I hope you guys continue that because that sounds awesome. I'm probably gonna hop off here when we're done and watch those.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
The November 1st one sounds cool. But yeah, I think with names, I mean, we struggled to find the name for this sort of thing we're trying to create here with Check the Candy. We were like, we knew we wanted to do something with food because it was just relatable with movies. I feel like, and I think you have to realize sometimes, in my opinion, that the name is great, but it's what you do after, like you said, with the 20 years of experience. Now Fright Rags is like the thing, you know what I mean? Now it is what it is. And I think it's hard to think that like when you first started out, because you're like, is it cool enough? We had so many names for Check the Candy that we thought were way cooler. Like we thought they were so more badass, and they were either taken by another company or something like that. And then so we just kind of landed on Check the Candy. And now that we're like starting to grow, it's like now it's like I would never change it for anything. You know what I mean? Now
I think it's
feels...
honestly, I think it's a great name. When I first heard it, I was like, that's pretty rad. Like, because
awesome.
it for real though, it instantly puts you in a place in your mind. You know exactly what that means. Like, you say Check the Candy, all of a sudden it like pulls up all of these memories I have as a kid trick-or-treating. So it's like instant recall. So I think that is a great way to do it. So yeah, I mean, kudos to you guys for that name.
Well,
thank you.
Cool.
Appreciate that.
Hearing that from you is a big blessing.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
That's great. I'm gonna clip that.
Yeah, go for it.
Taylor, you got anything else? We're coming up on an hour here.
Oh, dude, I've got so much to ask, but I have a problem. I have ADHD, and where like I zone in on one certain thing, and whenever you're talking, I completely wipe out everything else that I thought about. So, yeah, I'm gonna probably message you and be like, "Oh yeah, what about this?" But no, right now I'm good, man. Like you've been a great partner or guest. That's what it is. Great guest in this, and I've had a lot of fun, dude. A lot of knowledge, a lot of stuff that I didn't know that I like knowing. So it's fun.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's funny, thinking about this again, the whole 20-year thing. It's like when I started, I didn't have any knowledge or experience in business or anything. And it's funny thinking 20 years later, I still feel like I don't. You know what I mean? Like there's just days where I'm like, because you're just always learning. So every day I'm figuring out something that I didn't know. So I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, and you're learning. Yeah. But it's funny because then you start thinking back and you're like, oh, I guess I've accumulated some things. You know what I mean? Like you learn some things as you go. It's like, oh yeah, I guess so. I'm like, if I ever didn't do Fright Rags, like what would I even put on a resume? And then I was like, oh, I guess there's a few things I could put on there. But it's just funny to think about,
Well, forgive me if I'm wrong, but did you do anything for the 20-year? Like, did you make a shirt? Did you do anything?
Not yet. I mean, technically, we're in our, I mean, how do I put this? So the actual date of the anniversary would be around Labor Day weekend. So we've got about a few months, but we are thinking of things to do for the 20th. We just don't know what yet. I mean, it's hard. Like, I mean, I would love to throw some big party here, at least with our staff and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, it's,
I think if you release some shirts, man, they'll fucking sell.
Maybe a nice big sale,
Dude, not even that. Like, make one with like your face on it or something like that. Just like a fucking zombie,
I'd rock
like
that.
20 years, I'd rock that too.
We're gonna do some original merch for sure. We're also bringing back some old designs, stuff that we didn't think we'd ever bring back. So like we've done limited stuff in the past, 24 hours only, or excuse me, whatever. Some of those, like we just brought back the Beetlejuice one this last weekend.
I just saw that. They look awesome.
We just had a limited run of them because I'm like, yeah, it was a 24-hour only, but I'm like, it's our 20th anniversary. It's the anniversary of that movie. Let's just do a small run of those, right? So we're gonna pepper some of that stuff out throughout the year. We already have some ideas, just to have fun. I mean, I don't, at one point, I don't want to ruin the integrity of the original release, but to be honest, a shirt isn't the same as like a figure. They wear out. Sometimes they get ripped. Sometimes people, they don't fit anymore. They gained weight, they lost weight, whatever. So people mostly appreciate the chance to get something, another one later. And sometimes we try to switch it up in the tag and the colorway. So if people did have the original, it's not like you tell the difference,
That's what I was gonna say, is that like with Trick or Treat and with you, like creating mask and doing stuff like that right there, like that it's also a specific like not everyone's gonna buy that, the mask and stuff like that. But with your shirts, like you first starting into this, like, man, were you a nervous wreck, like getting this X amount of like shirts and like, oh God, I hope they fucking sell. Like,
dude, this is so funny. Like I had these 3 designs, and at the time I was just going to order them online. So I found this site, Custom Ink, which still exists. They're a big company. And I uploaded the designs. I was at work at the time, and I was sitting there, and I remember seeing my cart, and it was $10 a shirt for a 1-color print. It's crazy. And I had 60 shirts in my cart, so it was 20 of each design. It was gonna be $600.
Yeah.
I was sitting there like hovering over the buy button, thinking to myself, my wife and I were my fiance at the time, we were saving up for our wedding. We were gonna be married within the year. I did not have $600 just in money to spend on t-shirts, like stuff, like 60 t-shirts, right? So
Yeah.
my wife's like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, because I bought them. I'm like, click, they bought, and I was
I was about to say the same thing. My wife would be like, "You fucking dick!" Like,
yeah,
why did you do this?
dude, she was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I think I'm gonna try to sell t-shirts." And she is amazing because she supports me in everything I do. So she kind of was like, "Okay, whatever. Like, we're gonna have to figure out a way to make the $600,
Mm.
And we live in an apartment at the time, and these three big boxes came, and I'm just sitting there going, "Wow, look at all these! Like, this is a ton of t-shirts. Like, oh my God." And when I first put it up on the forum and everything, Justin's forum, I sold a bunch. I still have this folder of all the orders I got in September of 2003, the ones I printed out from PayPal, like everyone's
That's
address,
cool.
everyone's
That's
everything.
cool.
And it's wild. And then of course it slows down and you're trying to figure out how to sell the rest of them. But it was like this weird addiction because you'd sell a shirt and you'd be like, whoa, someone just sent me like $15 for a t-shirt. That's crazy to me, right?
Right.
And like I didn't take any money from it. I just was like, let's put it back into making more t-shirts. And I would just at the time I was the only designer, obviously. So it was just me. Let's make more t-shirts and do this. And it was just this weird like progression. And I found a t-shirt printer literally not even a mile from my work. He worked out of his garage. So every day after work, I'd go pick up t-shirts from his place and we'd hang out and talk. And, I
Did he
helped
do
him.
like the screen print where he like lays the ink on
Oh
and
yeah,
puts it
he
in
did
the
it all by
oven?
hand. I even helped. We had our first order for Hot Topic, and for anyone who doesn't know, when you get an order, like we don't do a lot of that stuff these days. We're actually doing more than we ever have in Spencer's and Spirit and Hot Topic, but that's a whole separate thing. But back then, I mean, when it was literally me in my apartment still, and even in my house, when I got my first order for Hot Topic, it was 2,000 t-shirts, and they needed it in like 3 weeks. And
Oh, wow.
you have to do everything. You have to buy all the hang tags and barcodes, and you have to fold them in a specific way. You have to package them in a specific way. You have to do everything. So
That's
they literally
awful.
get a box and put it on the shelf. So I didn't know any of this. It was like a 60-page manual. And
Wow.
I was freaking out. My wife and my mother drove 3 hours to buy blank t-shirts because we could get them cheaper further away and not pay the shipping.
Yeah.
And I was in my printer's garage with him because at the time we were doing the logo on the back so you could see, brand it. And I was printing right alongside of him,
So
right in
so
the garage.
you had to print out a screen of your image and then a
Yeah.
screen of the image on the back too,
Yeah.
and then do both of those. So
Wow.
I worked for the t-shirt company,
Hmm.
and that I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But I know what you're talking about. That's a pain in the ass to do because you gotta do this, you gotta send it to the oven, let it
Hmm.
sit for a minute, come back and do the backs of them. Like,
Yep.
and
Damn.
that's just more work and it's more money. Like, or well,
Yeah. It
if they
costs
have
more.
to do if they have to do a front and back, like it's like, hey, dude, this is more work. We're gonna charge you a little bit more. So I understand where you're coming from that, but doing it yourself, like I love doing it, and then going and pressure washing it off.
Oh yeah. It's
Like
fun. I did it in high school. It's funny. My first memory of like, because I was into it, right? Like I took a little bit of screen printing in high school as part of the art program. And that was at a time where you had to take it was that Ruby lift, right? And you had to like cut out with an X-Acto knife your design. So you basically you put it, you could see through, right? So you could put it on top of your design and then trace over it with an X-Acto knife and peel back the film. And
yeah,
then you put it on the screen and had to cure that, then wash it out, then lay the ink down. And at
yeah,
the time, my brothers and I had just started this band, and I created this logo for it, and I cut it out of Ruby Lift, and I was using that for my screen printing. But I was going through shirts. I just kind of there was a lot of scrap shirts that I was testing out on, and our first, I'll call it gig was like this battle of the bands at my school after like it was right around my time of my graduation, and I was up on stage playing. We had a bunch of friends up front, and this girl from one of my class was wearing the shirt with the logo on it because she pulled it out of the scrap bin to wear. And I was like, That's so cool. It was this weird thing where it was the very first time I saw somebody wearing a shirt that I actually printed. And had no idea that years later that would be what I would end up doing in some way. It's so cool.
Yeah, that is awesome, man.
I want to know what you played. What did you play? Bass, guitar, drums,
Oh,
sing?
I play guitar. I play actually like I have a wall of over here of a lot of my guitars. I took them all down because it got really dry over the winter, and I got to keep them in their cases, properly. But I love guitar, man. I started playing when I was 8, and then I gave it up because the lessons sucked. Like I was learning like Camptown races. I wanted to play freaking Rat. You know what I mean? Like and then when I was 16, I mean, Ramones are my favorite band of all time, and I just started playing again, and I never put it down. I mean, when I started having kids and stuff, there was definitely a number of years. I mean, my brothers and I didn't have a band anymore, but that I didn't play a lot, and then I finally got back into it. I mean, at this point, like over 10 years ago, and like play all the time. And now I play with my brother's band here and there, which is a lot of fun. And
that's what happened to me, man. Whenever I was in school, I played bass, drums, and guitar. And I had a few bands here and there, even ska. Do you remember ska, like with the trumpet shit? That was fun.
Awesome.
You could rock with that shit, and people would still have fun.
Yeah.
And so I did one of those as well. But as I got older and got married and had kids, man, it just kind of like that wasn't like I knew I wasn't going anywhere. Like everybody thinks when they're in the band, they're like, I'm gonna fucking play. I'm gonna do this shit for the rest of my life.
We're gonna do all that. Yeah.
But so I realized really quickly, after kids, I was like, this is not gonna happen. But I did like I guess my main thing was playing bass, and I ended up picking up acoustic bass, and I love it. Like that's still one of my favorites. I play with it, from time to time, and and I still like if you're gonna pull one out, you're not gonna pull out an acoustic bass. You're gonna pull out an acoustic guitar, and that's what I like to play. Just. But my wife, she's funny. She's like, put it up, because I'm just like, story of a girl.
That's awesome. Great. No, I it's fun, and it really is a good stress reliever. Like, obviously, I love what I do, or whatever, but it's really nice to kind of switch gears. And even now, like playing with my brother's band, he's got a blues thing going, and I mean, I love blues, and just being able to just be the guitarist that just gets to do a little backup and then play lead, and not have to worry about bantering with a crowd or singing or anything like that. It's the best, because now it's so low key, and like my kids are old enough now, like it doesn't even like it's not like
you guys just go jam,
Yeah, like dude, we'll have like a 3-hour gig, and I'll be like, okay, what songs are we doing and what key are they in? And he'll just shout out to me like, oh, we're doing this in this key. I'm like, all right, cool. And if it's something I'm super familiar with, I'll just figure it out.
You ever get down to Nashville?
Oh, I've been there when I was a kid. Like we drove through it, but I haven't not been since I was an adult. I want to go so bad though.
You got to come, because that's where I live. You got to come down to Nashville, and like just that. I love. I just went and watched Wrestle with Jimmy, and they travel. They're in
That's
Vegas.
A great name.
Oh, isn't it? Isn't it? It's a Weezer song, dude.
Yes,
talk about jacking off. I love it. But so they cover like everything, but they have some like original music. And I was sent John a couple of videos when I was there. I just stumbled upon them, like in the bar.
They had a big crowd too,
dude. Like, and they're the most energetic I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm getting off subject now, but what I was saying is that you should come down to Nashville. Like, just what key am I in? What am I doing? Because that's the way they are. That's the way everybody is in Nashville. They don't know what the fuck they're playing. They're just saying, hey, play, Freebird, play, Beyonce, play something. And they kind of like look at their phones and are like looking at each other and like, let's fucking do it. And that's the whole point of it. You just start playing. And that's cool that you guys do that. And did you say blues?
Yeah, it's very blues forward. My brother started doing it solo. Like he was the bass player in our band, and my other brother was drums. It was very convenient growing up. But so again, we kind of disbanded, if you will, just because we were, I would get married, had kids, started a business, this whole thing. They were doing their own thing. I mean, we're still very close. We live in the same, city still, so it's not like it's like we grew apart. Like we see each other all the time. Just the band wasn't anymore. We would jam once in a while, but we never played out after that. But then gosh, I guess almost 10 years ago, my brother started doing this acoustic blues thing. He had really gotten into blues because of me, because I was heavily into blues, like all blues, like not just like Stevie Ray Vaughan and other things, but like going back to Son House and all this stuff. Like just
Hell yeah,
a lot of that. And he started listening to a lot of that, and he got really into it, and he started doing this solo blues thing where he'd just go to places and play, and we'd go see him. And my brother would sometimes play drums with him. And then he kind of started adding people so he could have a fuller band at certain gigs. And he had this harmonica player and a drummer and a bassist. And I saw him one day. I was like, dude, I'm like, look, no pressure, but if you ever wanted me to come up and play with you just to like whatever is like a different thing, I absolutely would be honored to do it. And it was like a month or two after that, he's like, hey, you want to play this one gig? I'm like, hell yeah. So it just worked out. So now we kind of rotate in and out. Unfortunately, the harmonica player has been sick for a while, so he's not gonna be able to play out. So I've been playing a few more gigs, but it's not like every weekend or anything. But we got a couple coming up this month, and that's fun, man.
Do you travel? Or, like, do you just around New York?
No, it's just it literally is like just
then you're adding the stress back in.
Yeah, no, it's literally just local gigs in and around the city and stuff. It's nothing like it's very low key. I mean, my brother's done some a little bit further out, but
is blues popular? Like you're in New York, right?
Yeah, I'm in upstate New York. So we're like New York City's here. We're 6 hours north of that.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, we're in New York. It's crazy popular up here. Yeah, I would say.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a Tennessee thing. You know, like I don't know what's it like up there in Maine, John.
A lot of bluegrass. You know what I mean? Obviously, that kind of stuff. Folk music. A lot of like stomp music too, where bands don't have a lot of banjo with like no drums, just stomping, which is really cool.
You remember Stomp the movie?
I do.
Yeah,
dude, I was so into that shit.
But yeah, it's cool music up here. Obviously, there's blues and there's everything. There's punk, there's rock, there's all of it. But yeah, there's a lot of like that folk bluegrass type of feel with banjos and stuff. We have a band up here named Ghost of Paul Revere.
Cool.
You guys should check them out. They're so awesome, dude. They're one of their songs is like the main state song now. It just got put in like 3 years ago, which is really cool.
Oh, wow.
All that kind of stuff. But that's super cool, man, that you use it as like a stress reliever. You know, it's good to do something else and switch it up.
Dude, I'm over here like, and I have my amps and stuff back here. You can probably see some of them, but I'll be over here sometimes. Honestly, sometimes like 2 hours a night with my headphones on, or I'm in the addition of my house. This is like my man wing over here. So it's close up in the main house. I got my theater room right behind me. I got a bathroom and a kitchen. Like I don't have to go anywhere. So wife and kids might be over there. I got my amp like turned up kind of loud with my music going through the speakers so I can like jam along with something. And I'm just like wanking over here for 2 hours. Like,
hell yeah. That's
sometimes
awesome,
just have my headphones on, but man, I'm over here doing concerts in my head over here.
That's awesome.
No joke.
Wife walks in, you're like,
yeah. Oh, dude, sometimes I'm walking like, oh, hey, what's up? What's up, honey? Hey, how you doing?
she's like that face.
Yeah.
Stop it with that face.
Exactly.
That's awesome,
buddy.
Good stuff.
Yeah, dude. That's cool. Yeah, it's good for you, dude. You gotta relieve some stress.
Yeah. It's fun to, again, like you said, like you get older and you realize like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere with a band, right? There's no part of my life now where I'm going to be going on tours and headlining stadiums, right? It's not going to happen. And I'm like, so cool with that. Like just to be able to play even in front of 5 people at a local brewery.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's cool. Like I don't need to get paid or anything. Like I mean,
and that's fun. It's so fun to do that. You know
I do it because I want to do it. Like it's fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you guys write your own music, or is it you cover? What's going on?
So yeah, my brother Mike has a few originals and stuff that he's written. And again, because I'm just sitting in with him, it's like we've literally practiced twice outside of a gig. So half the time I'm just like, which I told him, like, dude, we got to start recording these so I can go back and like hear what the band's doing so I can like play parts. Like there's this one song that he made up. It's an original that he's got some weird tuning to it. He doesn't even know what it is, which is funny. And I'm not Mr. Guitar Theory, right? So I know obviously chords and certain things, but I'm listening to it. I'm like, we had taped one of the gigs and I was listening to it here and I wasn't playing during it because it honestly sounds fine with him doing himself so that I can go get a beer or something. But I'm like, what can I add to the song? And I was listening to it here and I'm playing. I'm like, oh, I know what to do. And I figured out this part and we just played it out a couple weeks ago. And my brother looks over at me. He's like, Where'd that come from? Like, and it's not like complex or anything. It was just this nice melodic compliment to what he was doing. And I was like, oh, I kind of filled in and he really liked it. So I'm like, that's cool, you know?
That's
But
great.
it kind of like sparks different parts of your brain, you know, than the normal stuff that you're doing. It's like, I mean, I get to be creative in what I do, but I don't know. It's just fun. I just like learning. So learning more guitars and like unlocking things on the fretboard that I never thought of before. And you go, oh crap. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
humbling.
Yeah. Do you ever play a fretless guitar or anything like that?
I never have. My brother's played fretless bass before, and that seems pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I've done that as well. I had one that had no head, like
Oh, like the Steinbergers?
yeah.
My brother had one of those. They're so funky, aren't they?
Yeah, they're cool. And so
Yeah.
like I was huge into the Chili Peppers, dude. So like Flea was like my I'm like just like snapping the bass, Like I was all about that shit. Also I wanna real quick, I know we gotta wrap this up soon. I wanna ask you something. What camera do you have? Because it follows you. I thought I had a tumor.
Yeah, it does.
I thought I had a tumor.
No, man. So I'm actually using this is my Apple Studio Display monitor. So it's the built-in camera for that. And I mean, it is the feature I actually can turn it off and I just keep forgetting to do it, but it does track me. Like it's funny.
It's cool.
It's
cool.
And it's not the monitor doesn't move. The actual monitor.
I thought you were knocking the desk the whole time. It's like it like perfectly lined up with you. I'm like, that's not it. That's not it.
So yeah, it's just a feature of this monitor, which actually is kind of a cool thing. But again, you can turn it off. But yeah, I ended up I work on a laptop. It's funny with the pandemic and everything, like not going. I mean, this is obviously we're well back at the office now, but like working from home, and I didn't have my iMac because I was at the office. I had my little MacBook Pro, but it was like the smaller one, and I did the bulk of my work for 2 years in the pandemic off of that thing. And then I realized I need to get a bigger laptop. So I got the bigger one. But I'll go back and forth to work. Then my iMac's dying. I'm like, I'm just going to get a monitor for home, and just have a dock. And then I'll bring my laptop to the office when I go, like just trying to figure out. But so I've had this now for a while. Cause when you have multiple windows open and you're on a 13-inch screen, that does not work very well.
This gets old.
Yeah, dude. Like you're just moving these around, and then even on the 16-inch, as great as it is, it's still a little bit like you're hunched over on a computer all day, right? And I'm like, no, I need to have more of like a desktop setup. So I'm like, why don't I just get a monitor for the Mac? And I ended up going with the Apple Display. I really do like it. It's pretty sweet. Like you just plug and play type of thing. Like most monitors are fine, but this is just a little bit more intuitive because it's a Mac, so just kind of like it works,
I might check that out because I need one, man. I've been on this computer since 1 o'clock today. I've been working on a movie I'm working on, and then I jumped right onto this, and I'm like, man, my back not good. I gotta get something that I can put up here.
I have my computer in the clamshell mode, and it just plugs in through the lightning cable and it keeps the laptop powered. And I plug into this thing, and this has ports on the back of it too. And I'll tell you, I was like, am I really going to spend that much on a monitor? But I'm glad I did. I actually bought a 27-inch Dell for the office. So I'm like, well, I'm not there as much, so I'll just use that one. It's a nice monitor, And I tried with my computer, but to get it to work in clamshell mode and like it was trying to do the dual monitors thing and all stuff, I'm like, what a headache. So I just gave it to my office manager to give her a bigger monitor. I'm like, I might just get another Apple one for the office at some point, but I'm whatever.
I have to say, Apple is they do know their shit when it comes to monitors and stuff like that.
And they're the MacBook. I mean, their laptops are just unbelievable.
Oh well, the new ones, the M1 chip on the one that I have. I mean, I know they're on M2 now, but I mean, it's finally gotten. I used to be a computer nerd. I used to build computers, and I was so into. I was a total Windows dude, even though I was a graphic designer. But I'll tell you, like, you would get a chip and be like, okay, this is really good, but if I wanted to do that, it won't handle it. Nowadays, the chips are so good. It's like, and it's not like I have 8 4K movies running at the same time and editing and all this stuff. I'm like, the computer's probably way, way, way more than I ever need for the stuff that I do, even with Photoshop. It's like gone past the point of at least what I'm doing. I'm not editing major motion pictures here,
Right.
Is that a sleepaway camp behind you?
That's Sleepaway Camp 2 right there. Yep.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Dude, that's one of my favorite movies, favorite horror movies of all time. So I have the Halloween.
It's so good.
Those are cool posters. Yeah, Sleepaway Camp. I think I like yeah, see, like I'm not as big of a fan of the first one as I am the part 2 and 3. Like I really do like part 2 and 3.
I like all of
Same.
them, dude. I like all of them. They're so good.
I mean, one is, don't get me wrong, one is a
It's
classic,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but let's be honest, like if you took out the final scene, it would not get
Nah,
it
definitely
wouldn't
not.
get the love it gets today. And again, that's I'm not trying to speak down on it, but it's not as well made of a film. It's just that end scene is crazy, and
Yeah.
I mean, I love that movie. I can watch it all the time. But two hit that, like I saw that when I was 12, right basically when it came out. I didn't know anything. I didn't realize we're making a two, and it was in the video store, and my buddy and I rented it, and I was like, this I love everything about this movie. It's got everything. It's got boobs, it's got blood, it's got freaking everything. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is the best. And three was honestly just just as great. But
Yeah,
two, I
I agree.
think soft spot. Funny enough, that's actually the very first license we ever got, or I ever got.
Really?
Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3, and that we still have them to this day, 20 years later. So it's the longest one we've ever had.
Wow.
That's
But
cool.
I contacted Michael Simpson. This was like basically a month and a half after I started Fright Rags. I didn't know anything about licensing, nothing. And he faxed me an agreement to my work, and I signed it and faxed it back to him, and started doing Sleepaway Camp 2 shirts. So, and 3. So that was pretty cool. That was like my first, like, oh my God, I'm actually doing something official.
We have to wrap this up by now, John. I'm sorry, I ramble. You do you do things with Friday 13th now?
No, unfortunately, that whole thing has been kind of a mess. We've done parody stuff in the past. That's just you can kind of do. Like, what would Jason do?
Yeah.
But with Friday the 13th and them being owned by Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers has really been a tough company to try to work with. We've worked with pretty much any studio you can think of it: Disney, Sony, MGM, Universal, Paramount, Lionsgate, like tons of companies, Miramax. Warner Brothers won't budge, like ever.
Really?
And I've met with them. I've been to their offices. We meet every year at the licensing show. I talk to them over email on the phone, and just never.
Do they give you a reason? Do they say anything?
Some of these companies, what happens is they have a dedicated, like, again, think of it. If you're a team that's handling approvals, so people are emailing you or sending it into their system, designs for whatever it is, t-shirts, figures, handbags. I mean, the list is long, right? And you're part of that approval team. Some companies have teams for each category, right? Some companies just have a smaller team, and you're getting flooded. The more licensees you have, the more your inbox is flooded with approvals. And they're just like, look, we already have companies that do t-shirts in like Walmart, right? So why do we need you guys? I'm like, well, we cater to a other end of the market, the hardcore fan, and direct consumer, and I
Better
share
designs and stuff.
yeah, and I share them like that story and that angle in what we've done with Universal, where I'm like, look, yeah, those companies also have people in Walmart and Target and all these other stores, and we're still successful with this avenue of who we sell to, this audience. So I think what they're doing is just saying we only want to work with like a couple different companies, and if we already have shirts covered, then that's a box that we ticked, and we don't want to add any more to that, which I honestly think is sad. I mean, not just for us, for a lot of other companies that want to get the rights to it. I mean, I'm not just speaking for myself. There's a lot of cool companies out there that we could see some really cool stuff from.
Yeah.
And then there was the whole legal issues with Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller, and I still don't know where all that ended up. So it's
that's a mystery.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I know they settled it, but there's still the rights are kind of broken up, and I don't really know what's going to happen. So we'll see, but I'll keep trying.
Yeah, definitely.
Always gonna try.
Yeah,
there's no reason to not ask.
Right?
Maybe one day. Yeah, that's sad for the fans too.
It is.
People keep asking us for it. I'm like, look, I would do it, and
Right.
once in a while we'll do like a limited release of something or whatever. But really, I just want the opportunity to develop a full collection of whatever they give us the categories, you know, t-shirts and other things. Like I can envision that and Nightmare on Elm Street, like anything with Warner Brothers, you know.
Yeah.
So maybe someday we can hope.
What yeah, and we all have full faith in you. Um what about like like Drew Marvick and AMP Films and stuff like that? Have you talked to them? Have you done any shirts with them or at all?
We
Well, yeah,
haven't.
because you did the Valentine Bluffs fan film, right?
Yeah, we did that. Chuck's a friend of mine, and he wanted to do that as part of his Kickstarter, and that was fine because we designed it, but they handled all the printing and the fulfillment.
Right.
You know what's hard is sometimes, you know, for good and for bad, we have a lot going on. We have a lot of projects, a lot of licenses, and when to answer your question, I have not spoken to Drew personally about it, but we do get requests from people who've made independent movies or other things. And I'm like, it's hard because when we have to dedicate a certain amount of time and money to design shirts, to print them, to spend the money, to warehouse them, put them on shelves, to sell them. And we've done a lot of things. Look, I'm always up for taking chances, and we take a lot of chances with certain things.
You have to know you're going to make your money back. It's pretty much.
Yeah, you got to know that. Look, I'm not sitting here saying this has got to sell, you know, 1,000,000 shirts or we're not doing it. It's just got to be worth it because there's been a lot of times where we even know it's not going to sell well. We don't print that many, and they still don't sell. And now I'm like, well, now we got to discount it. Now we got to move it. Now we got to do this with it. And you have to make decisions. Now, you know, if we can maybe do, and we've been testing this out, like maybe trying some things on demand or whatever, that might pave the way for more of those opportunities because we wouldn't be warehousing t-shirts at that time.
Yeah. Do you do like a certain amount, you know, like
yeah, so with
40,
screen printing,
you know?
especially with the majority of our shirts, which are a high color count, but even with the 1 and 2 color stuff, like you got to print a certain number, like because if you run out right away, then you got to reprint them again anyway, and you know, and obviously they cost less the more you make.
Right.
We have certain numbers that we're like, okay, print this number for this, print this number for that, blah blah blah. And again, sometimes we're wrong, you know. But with screen printing, you just can't print one. It's not like, oh, we ran out of 3 shirts, so print 3 shirts. You got to print them in bulk because you're setting all the screens up. It's got to be worth the printer's time to do it. It's got to be worth all the time to set up the screens, to get the inks going, all that stuff. And our printers are great. They're amazing. We work really closely with them. But it would be better if you could just kind of print one at a time, and there is that technology available, and we've been investigating it more, not for everything, not for all of our collections, but for certain things that we could do once in a while. I think there could be a future in that. I don't know when or where, or how yet, but that could be something maybe in the future that would allow for us to kind of work with the ones that we're not so sure of. But hey, we'll throw it up on the website and see what it does, you know.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, because you know, indie horror, whatever I just said, indie horror is you know, it's a big thing, and people like Drew and AMP Films and
absolutely
Valentine Bluffs and stuff like that. Like people, you know, that's almost like back to the roots kind of horror, you know, and they enjoy that stuff. So so I commend you for trying to figure out how, you know, how
I mean, we're always
how can I do this?
Yeah,
the business side is tough, you know. It doesn't mean
that's hard.
You're not a fan of that kind of stuff, you know. It's just the business side is difficult sometimes. You got to make the money back. If you print 25 shirts, you know, you're not making any money.
Yeah, it's not, again, when you can spend that time doing something, you know, potentially more profitable, it's better to spend that time there. Again, it's not like we're only trying to do the things that work, because A, you never know what's going to work or not.
Right.
And B, I do like taking risks. I like taking chances on things. Like you know, if I personally see a movie that I fall in love with, I'll see if we can get the rights to. Deadstream was a good one. I love that movie. And you know, someone had tagged us with Joe on Twitter, Joseph, and I think he DM'd me, or maybe I DM'd him. I honestly don't remember. It was like, hey, would you want to do shirts? I'm like, yeah, man. Like, I love that movie. I would love to work with you. And again, because it was an indie movie, it wasn't like it cost us crazy tons of money to do. And you know, it did okay, it certainly doesn't match a lot of the other titles that we have, but I'm glad we did it, because to me it was like, yes, this deserves a chance. And I want to give more movies like that chances, but it does become, unfortunately, it does become a business decision at the end of the day, because you only have so much time, you only have so many people or mental bandwidth. I've taken on a lot, and at times where I'm like, I shouldn't have taken on 80% of that, and then you kind of lose focus, and it's like, yikes, I can't afford to do that, especially now.
Yeah, Deadstream, man. I don't even think that has a physical release yet. So the fact that
it will, though. I know it's coming out. I don't know. I did
100%
hear them
good.
say that. I think maybe this summer, but oh my god, this is
I actually just talked to somebody on Instagram, Paradox, I think Paradox something, and they make a VHS of it. And I was like, "Is the movie on the tape?" And they're like, "Yes." And I was like, "Hey, I'm in. Give me 2." Like that movie is amazing.
It's great. I scooped up that shirt I think it was only not even a month ago. I scooped up that shirt. I fucking love that shirt, man. It's so cool.
Yeah, he told me about it. He's like, "You got to watch."
I was like, "You got to watch this movie, dude. It's so good." And I just stumbled upon it randomly. I didn't hear much about it, and then I just randomly saw it like a couple months ago, and I was like, "You got to check this out, man. It's so good." And then you guys did the shirt, and I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that. Like we did Studio 666. That was kind of fun. And that movie was bonkers, but it was fun to be able to do shirts for it. I like stuff like that, or I'm like, yeah, we'll try it. Why not? Let's go for it.
I never watched that. I've never been a big what's his face fan.
Grohl.
Dave Grohl.
Yeah, I don't like Nirvana, and I don't like him. So, and I actually seen them live, and I actually got to see them. Lincoln Park opened up for what's
Foo
that
Fighters?
Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
And I am so happy I got to see Chester before what happened to Chester. But like that was, I went to see Coheed and Cambria and ended up absolutely loving Lincoln Park, and then just freaking hating the other one. But either way, that's me. Hey, we gotta cut this. Okay,
yeah, let's wrap it up, boys. We're rambling now.
Yeah.
No, it's good, man. This has been great, Ben. Thanks for coming on, dude. Love Fright Rags. Love what you're doing. Keep it up. You're like the Rick Rubin of t-shirts, dude.
I take that as a high compliment.
I
don't have the beard, but I'll work on that.
It's all right. Yeah. The older you get, just keep it going, dude.
Right.
It'll be awesome. Appreciate you coming on, man. This was a great opportunity for us, so we appreciate you taking the time. So
absolutely. No, thanks for having me on, guys. It was a lot of fun just chatting. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Great, Ben. Thanks, guys.
All right.